Well, good afternoon, everybody. Jeff Byers, Park Property Management Solutions. Today, I am joined with RoseMarie Bateman with FRSTeam Restoration.
Yes, we are FRSTeam of the Inland Northwest. We are a locally owned and operated contents restoration service just out of Spokane Valley. And you're always welcome to come tour our warehouse. But a little bit about what contents restoration is it's the restoration of personal property or business property, right? So we all know that restoration stands for fire, water, smoke, debris, mold, whatever you're going to encounter, with the environment. And so when those losses do happen, we come through for just the belongings. So whether that's, the couch that your grandmother passed down to you 15 years ago and can't simply be rebought or repurchased, or whether your whole home was impacted by smoke and realistically replacing every single belonging you own is just not the right option for you. We'll come through, we'll do the whole pack out, which means packing up your belongings. We'll transport it back to our warehouse where they will go under an IICRC certified process to be restored to what we call the pre-loss condition, which is sometimes better than the pre-loss. Or then post-loss, pre-loss. But it all works. So we'll restore it to the pre-loss condition. And then once you are ready and your home or business has been restored to its pre-loss condition, we'll pack it all back into the same rooms that it came out of, so you don't have to figure out where you had your antique collection or your china ware or those kinds of things. Those are things that we have thought about to make your life simpler, because when unfortunately a loss does happen, things can be quite hectic and chaotic. So our job is to make it as simple as possible while maintaining your sentimental personal property.
Oh, that's great. And realistically, her job and my job is the same: create peace of mind for the people that we serve. And so I really do appreciate you being with us today. I'm going to go over a few topics. Being business development managers, we run into a unique position where we're not just with a company, but we're in the community, and we're the ones that are usually the face of the company. We're going around shaking the hands, being kind of the brand ambassador. So it was really nice meeting you a couple of weeks ago, because it really seemed like we aligned with our thought processes on how to be in the community and provide the right level of service for what we do. So today we'll just go over a couple of things. I'm going to ask some questions. We'll just kind of spitball some answers together and just let people know how we work and maybe give a little more insight into property management as well as the restoration side of things. So once again, thank you so much for being here, and we'll just dive right in. What do you believe actually builds trust fastest in local business relationships?
I would say genuinity and intentionality. It's one thing to offer service and say, hey, we are the best at it. We know we're the best at it. This is why. It's another thing to have, examples to back that up, right? Actions that show, hey, we do it this way. This is why we do it this way. And this is what sets us apart. But being genuine in those conversations, I think that most people will see through when somebody's a little disingenuous and maybe not super bought into what they are actually selling, right? And people, sales reps specifically, or business development representatives, you'll kind of notice that if they are with a company that they truly don't believe in the product or service, you'll see it in their conversations, their behaviors, how they interact. And I think that makes a really big difference. And I say intentionality because we do a lot of different things as business development managers. I mean, our scope of kind of how we perform on a day-to-day basis is constantly changing. I mean, we have to be adaptable. You never know if you're going to be in operations or admin work or actually out in the field meeting people or networking. Every day is different. And so being intentional with every action, right? Whether that's showing up on time, showing up early, making sure, hey, even when things do get busy, hey, I did not forget about you. This is what's going on. This is the next step. Just having those, honest conversations.
Yeah, no, I truly believe in that as well. Hitting consistent front of mind communications, having multiple touch points, even when nothing is going on.
Yes.
Saying something is better than nothing a lot of the time, because then it takes all of the crazy head trash, all of that stuff out of the customer's way, and you're still putting them in line with a timeline, how things are working, even if nothing is going on that day. It's really important that face-to-face stuff, being available when you say you're going to be available, those are the big things for us. And so that really does make a lot of sense.
I completely agree with that.
Nice. Well, what is one thing people completely misunderstand about being a BDM?
So I think when you are talking about what you do at work, right? Everybody has those conversations with their family, friends, maybe it's small talk. You're like, oh, I do networking, sales, and marketing. That would be like the 3 words I would use to generalize what it is that business development managers do. But it is so much deeper than that. And I say that because when you are doing sales, it's different from the salesperson at the car lot. I can't walk into a business and say, hey, Jeff, I know I just met you today. Here's what my company does. This is what we can do for you. Hey, let's work together today. It simply doesn't work like that, because we need to develop a true relationship to determine, hey, do our businesses actually align? Do I want to work with Jeff, and does Jeff want to work with us, right? Exactly. So that's something you have to take into consideration, for one. And, when you're talking about marketing, obviously videos like this are important, introducing what it is that we do, talking about it, but it's also showing what that looks like, whether that's showing an invoice or showing insurance agents and restoration specifically, hey, this is what our invoice looks like. When you're talking about these coverages with your insureds, these are things that you should mention. Having that knowledge is very powerful. Knowledge is power, right? And being able to be educative over, simply, hey, this is what I can do, is super important. Yeah,
that it is. As a business development manager, the times have changed. It's not the 1990s, it's not the early 2000s. We are more of a high education, high touch point style sales process these days, where you're not just buying on with a company, you're buying on with the person who's representing the company, and that oftentimes falls in our lap. And you have to be careful with it, because it's not just our reputations, it's the company's reputation, and we want to be able to serve our clients the best way possible, and that starts with being there to answer questions, give high-end education, be able to say, hey, let's just go and catch lunch today, not even talking about business, but what's going on in your world, and understanding the people that you're working with.
Yeah, I completely agree. And to kind of add to that point, what I think is also really important when you have those business-to-business relationships, especially with property management and restoration, if our communication is misaligned, that is unfortunately always going to fall back to the client, right? Because they are going to hear different things from the property manager and from the restoration service, which is why it's important that as business development managers, we develop those relationships. He should understand what our process looks like before we ever have to utilize our process, and vice versa.
Yep. Oh, very true. And a lot of people don't realize that while we do have a forward-facing service where we're dealing with clients in the community, a lot of it is referral-based. You're going to have a majority of your work coming from word of mouth. Our work and our portfolio and our leads come from word of mouth. And so by treating everybody as 100% in line as possible, those are where the true, real quality clients are coming from. And you just get a better client experience that way.
It's true. And I think one of the biggest complaints I hear about business development managers is coming off as salesy.
Yes.
That is definitely one of the most negative attributes that I hear when describing other business development managers. And I think that comes from a couple different backgrounds. But I think every person that goes into business-to-business sales or business development started in sales. And every sales position is slightly different. I mean, I started in high pressure sales. And so for me to go into business to business sales where it's not a same day decision.
Right.
This isn't a same day conversation. This is a process. That was definitely a learning curve. And I think for a lot of salespeople that go into business development experience that same, kind of learning curve, and they have to readjust, for the times too.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's the ones that are able to adjust that are truly, coming into their own. They're becoming very high level, and that's really important. And along the same lines, when you think about this job, what's more important, being known or being trusted?
Definitely being trusted. I mean, you can be known, you can be on every advertisement, on every news cable station, and people can know your name. But if they don't trust your business or you as a person, the reality is you're not going to continue to see work from that person. You might get one job, right? But then they might feel kind of off put or not want to work with you in the future. And if that's the case, you just ruined a relationship opportunity simply because you're not trustworthy. And I think that goes back to my point earlier about being genuine.
Yes.
You know, knowing what it is that you are selling, the ins and outs of the industry, and never, this is one piece of advice, never talk bad about another company. No matter what the scenario is, I think we all run into that with other businesses or where values don't align. That's okay. Don't go spread that information.
Right.
That's never your goal in business development, because at the end of the day, it's not going to put you above another company. It's going to put you below that company.
Yeah, and it never works when you're trying to sway somebody's opinion of you by being negative about somebody else in order to try to sway that. It just never seems to work, folks. It's just not.
It's not a good idea.
No.
And a trustworthy person wouldn't do that.
Yeah, and as long as you're well, GoPro. As long as you're like I said, front of mind, you're doing really good communication, you're moving forwards with what you say you're going to do. I mean, those things speak for themselves. You don't have to disparage other people in order to get the business. And in 99% of the businesses that we work in, there's more than enough room at the table for everybody to eat. So we don't need to be clawing at each other's throats. And high-level business development managers understand that one. So that's really good. And just along those same lines, when it comes to being responsive in today's market, how important is that in your business and your industry?
It's very important. I mean, I was reading a statistic recently that phones in an office, for example, that go unanswered for longer than 5 minutes without a callback, you just lost that job. The chances dwindle of you being able to call back at that point. I mean, you have to think everybody has a smartphone with Google. They can search up contents restoration and potentially find multiple companies. So if they call first one that shows up on Google, so no matter how good your SEO is, if you do not answer your phones, you're going to lose that opportunity, because they're going to call until somebody answers the phone. And that's the reality. And so I think that, for one, is just a very baseline example. But also in general, being responsive is very important, especially in things like property management and restoration, where things hit the fan out of nowhere, right?
Yes, they do.
So you need to be very quick to respond. You need to have the knowledge to answer questions. And if you don't know an answer, don't lie or, try to come up with some workaround answer that's not actually answering their question. Instead, answer honestly and say, hey, I don't know the answer to your question right at this time. Here's what I'm going to do to find it. Here's when you will know that answer. Because the last thing I want somebody to do is to go to my competitor to find that answer, and I think that's really important in all forms of services, quite frankly.
Yes, and being genuine just in general is the piece to the puzzle a lot of people miss. And the high communication, just as you touched on in New Orleans while we were at the NARPM broker owner, we had the 2026 Property Management Trends Report come out. And exactly like to your point, speed to lead is probably the biggest thing in business right now. Under 5-minute response times is expected just across the board, if not instantaneous. So have your people, such as Kaylin here, answering phones as they come in, because it's very important. Even if she's not going to be able to jump in front of the problem or give the answers, she answered the phone, and now the link is happening. She's going to set me up or property manager up with the person. We're going to get those questions answered. So speed to lead, making sure that you're following up, multiple touch points these days when we're dealing with new leads and new clients, and having a really good onboarding system for the clients you are winning and bringing into the company family. All of those are super, super important this year. I would say probably the most important.
I mean, especially just everybody has access to all the knowledge you can think of, especially with AI too. I mean, that just makes it even easier.
Yes.
So definitely taking that into consideration in everything you do. And I think that aligns too with your CRM is potentially one of the most important things in your business.
Yes, it really is.
Because if you are not organized, it's very easy to lose leads, right? Lose information, have to go re-ask the same question 4 times. Like, that's never a good look. So if you're able to stay organized, nobody expects you to remember every single thing. That's just impossible, right? Especially with how many conversations we have in a day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm lucky if I remember every single person's name at the end of a networking event.
Yes.
So that taken into consideration, your CRM is very important, and having a CRM developed for what you do specifically. Our CRMs are going to be different, and they should be.
100%. Yes. Yes, my CRM, it is something. but you have to grow it. You have to take care of it. You have to tend it, and otherwise, like you said, you do lose valuable information that can sometimes make you look like you're not 100% on the ball. So definitely keeping up on the CRMs, whether that's Jobber or like with us, I use Lead Simple. Very important stuff. Well, great. And last question, big question, and then I'll end with one more. What's one thing businesses should focus on more besides sales?
Your team. And I mean every single member on your team, from the ground up to the highest person on your team, whether that's owner development or something very simple, right? An entry level role, ensuring that they have good education results back in good teams, and having somebody in the field that is knowledgeable, well trained, that's only going to make you and your business look better. For example, if I were to hire somebody tomorrow, they are not going to know the conversations that Jeff and I have had in the last few months. They're not going to know what the expectations are. But if you have a good training regimen, you'll know exactly every team member will be on the same level, right? So I think that's very important. And I think what we see a lot these days is high turnover. And I think that's just across the board. I mean, almost every single business I've worked in personally has had a higher turnover than what I thought was reasonable. And it's management, you know, if people buy into you in that interview, right? If I'm interviewing somebody and they decide to come work for me, they're buying into me. And if I leave the very next day, chances of them staying with the company is pretty low, right? So if you have a good company overall, like company values and having integrity that's gonna encourage people to stay longer, but then you also have good management, you're gonna have a team that's well educated, and you know that you can give them any problem and they'll be able to handle it, which in return allows us to step back from operations.
Yes.
But if I'm having to step into operations because my team needs additional information, that's drawing away from what we are able to accomplish in a day.
Yes, exactly. The handoff is very important because what we say out in the field or in a meeting or in a lunch and we're signing a PMA or an intent to contract or whatever, we need to be able to know that unless we're holding the ball all the way through the end, we need to know there are teams to be able to step up, be able to jump in and do what's necessary after we get the ball rolling for them. So high education, cross training, onboarding successfully. The first 100 days, whether that's a client or an employee, is exceptionally important, and you don't want to lose a client or an employee in the first 100 days due to a lack of training or not enough support. So that is a very important thing, and I do appreciate that answer because it does touch on a very, very important topic.
I agree.
Excellent. Well, last question. This one's a little bit fun, and we'll let you all get back to your normal lives. But the secret sauce of your company, what are you focusing on that you believe sets you apart?
I think what we have focused on is our systems and processes. I mean, especially in contents restoration, some of the biggest complaints you'll hear in the industry is belongings getting lost, right? Slow, production timelines that keep people from having their belongings for much longer than needed or necessary or is expected. And simply having dialed in systems and processes is really important. We worked a lot on our CRM and our organization and our warehouse to the point that we, created 3 separate warehouses, all with their own distinction.
Nice.
And the reason we did that is because it's organized. And that's why I say, people can always come to our warehouse because I'm proud of it. And I know that what I am showing is the way to do contents restoration. I mean, I've always been more than happy to show anybody our warehouse, even if they themselves are stepping into contents. Because the last thing I want to hear is that a homeowner who's already been through some of the worst times of their lives after a fire or major flood or whatever, kind of loss they experienced, then had an even worse experience with their belongings. I always say, nobody cares about their drywall as much as they care about their belongings. And it's true, because you never know what is sentimental. Something that might look like an everyday object could be passed down generations, right? That one necklace that might not look super special to you could have been their great grandmother's or even their mother who may have passed away. Things like that you don't typically think about until you work in contents and you're realizing just how much value belongings have and hold. So I think that's really important.
That is important. And just as you're saying that, I can think of probably a half dozen things inside our house right now that may not look like much, but they would be it would really hurt if we lost them.
Yes.
And so you do have a very important job, and that's great. Like she said, coming into her warehouse, even if you may be a competitor, collaboration over competition is really the name of the game anymore.
Yes.
And we're not here to be at each other's throats. We're not here to be major competitors. Let's collaborate. Let's find out the best way to serve our clients and then let them decide who they want to be with. Because ultimately, I mean, if they don't want to be with you, they're not your client to begin with. So thank you so much today, RoseMarie. I do appreciate you. One more time, say who you're with and how they can get a hold of you.
Yes, yeah. So my name is RoseMarie Bateman, and I'm with FRSTeam of the Inland Northwest. We're located in Spokane Valley, and you can always give me a call. My direct line, so you can text me, is 509-514-1668. Again, 509-514-1668.
Perfect. And once again, I'm Jeff Byers, Park Property Management. We're Midtown Coeur d'Alene, 208-626-6200. You're going to get Kaylin behind us when you give us a call. We're here for HOA management as well as rentals. Let us know what we can do to help, and we'd love to be a resource of education. Thank you again, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.